I've mentioned before, one of the very interesting characteristics of Bitcoin is the ability to take something from the legal realm, contracts, and turn it into a technologically solvable equation in the form of a transaction script. So where a traditional escrow transaction really is about a third-party signatory in a legal contract, on Bitcoin, it's a third-party signatory in a digital signature sense. So Bitcoin allows you to take things that are currently only possible through law and make them possible through technology. Well, here's an interesting side effect. Currently, if you want to own and control money, you have to be a person, a natural person, or the legal fiction of a person in a bunch of people getting together in a corporation. If you want to control money, you have to be a legal entity. But with Bitcoin, you don't. In fact, money can be controlled programmatically. And what that does is actually creates, for the first time in history, the possibility of autonomous agents that control their own financial resources through direct programmatic control of a wallet. Essentially, AI bots that have a bank account. And up to now, this has been impossible. And now we have the possibility of artificially intelligent agents that can spend money. What that means is really a very interesting scenario where success in the marketplace is judged by the ability of one of these artificial entities to pay its hosting bill and perhaps to grow its hosting bill and spread. It's survival of the solvent.
That's a classic kind of concept in artificial intelligence, right? Is this sort of recapitulating the evolutionary process that biological organisms go through to prove their fitness, their ability to survive and prosper and thrive, right?
Yes, I think anyone who has taken even a passing first-year class in artificial intelligence and seen genetic algorithms instantly becomes fully convinced of the factual basis of evolution because they can see it in action in front of their eyes. They can see new capabilities emerging out of random processes. So you could really have this not only genetic algorithms that allow you to have competition between generations as well as swapping of code in the form of DNA fragments equivalent, if you like, but also you could have these agents operating in terms of financial analytics and making investments. They could invest in other agents, they could invest in subsidiary agents, and they could deliver dividends to parent agents. It creates all kinds of very interesting scenarios.
Let me play the guy who hasn't taken the artificial intelligence course here. I mean, I don't even know if they exist yet. What types of applications do you think that this technology could fit in?
A very basic one is a fully autonomous botnet, a botnet that generates Bitcoin perhaps through mining, but uses that Bitcoin internally to buy hosting for launching more copies of itself.
So a self-aware virus.
A self-propagating, self-funding virus. Okay. I think that would be a very interesting thing because we're already seeing botnets and Bitcoin mining converge. It only makes sense that at some point one of those will escape the control of its parent. And I think that's where you see some interesting effects. The bigger picture here is that while we have been speaking about artificial intelligence in broad terms for the last 25 years and really talked about how it hasn't progressed, in the background, narrow niches of artificial intelligence have made incredible leaps and bounds. So the ability to do speech recognition, speech synthesis, facial recognition, number plate recognition, the ability to implement game theory and genetic algorithms and all of those things. Artificial intelligence has really exploded over the last decade without anyone really noticing. So once you add money to that equation, it makes things really interesting.
So what are we going to do when the robots start demanding to keep their money that they made?
There's an incredibly interesting article on letstalkbitcoin.com on the blog by Stan Larimer where he talks about digital autonomous corporations. And I think one of the interesting things is relating that to Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. What these do is they set up essentially a self-regulating morality core that allows an independent autonomous organism to operate in a non-harmful way. Now, we should be embedding things like that, basic controls for propagation and things like that, into our own digital autonomous corporations, if you like, or autonomous agents. The problem is some of these will be malicious and they won't be constrained. So you will have sociopath agents, pretty much like corporate capitalism, really.
The idea of good or evil as like a definitive truth, where there are some things that should not be allowed, as in with the 3 laws of robotics. The question is, should we be encoding morality into these things? And if that's the case, why aren't we already doing that as far as software is concerned?
Well, I think morality looks very different from the perspective of a virus. And these digital and autonomous corporations really look much more like viruses than they do more complex species like mammals, primates, or humans. In such terms, morality in a virus is really about propagation speed. That's all that matters. As long as you're not killing your host and therefore dying yourself as a result, it's really a survival mechanism. There is no, morality is always a survival mechanism in every species. And so I think you can encode safeguards, if you like. They're not really morality codes. They're really technological safeguards to prevent a runaway rogue agent effect.
But just like in biological systems, there's going to be a huge diversity of strategy artificial intelligences would employ to achieve solvency and thriving in propagation, right? You might even see AIs that do charity or prop up other species or do kind of commensalism where they kind of aid other AIs in their survival and they partner up with them. Just like it happens in the biological world. It's not all competition and kill or be killed, eat or be eaten. There's a lot of cooperation too, and that is a viable strategy for survival and prospering. I think it's fascinating to see where this might go.
One of the interesting things about genetic algorithms is that they often arrive at solutions that work, but we can't understand why. So the thing about these experiential or heuristic-based algorithms is that you can't necessarily understand exactly why it's working correctly or why a certain behavior emerges once you put several of these agents together, the kind of socially emergent behavior you'd see in a hive species like an ant or bees. So these types of behaviors that emerge, you can't really reverse engineer them and understand what's going on inside, yet they work. So we will see very, very strange things emerge. What stopped artificial intelligence from doing that kind of very rapid evolution, I think, is the lack of resources or the fact that the resources are controlled by an external agent. Once you throw money into that and take away that constraint, really, yeah, you will start seeing potentially some very rapid evolution.
I think it'll be interesting to see the development of this as an ecosystem. You're both right. If you look at evolutionary systems, then you do see these solutions pop up in ways that we never would have expected. But it's important to keep in mind that those aren't definitive solutions, right? That's not like, and this is the best way to do it, and no one ever thought of that. It's just that in the particular context of wherever that entity or program is working, that's what happened to work there. But really what we're talking about here is a broader ecosystem that contains millions or, hundreds of millions of different iterations of all of these different things and the trends of what's going to work emerging over time. So at the same time, you won't have one solution, but you will have dominant solutions, right? Because those will be the things that consistently are proven to work.
Exactly. This is really very similar to watching the ecosystem of altcoins in order to gain understanding of the marketplace context those operate in. The context is really the environment, and the question is, what is the fitness function that is leading an organism to be successful in this environment? When you look at the strategies that make an organism successful, it tells you a lot more about the environment that organism is in. So for example, let's say we're looking at altcoins, right? We see altcoins like Litecoin and Feathercoin. What does that tell us about the fitness function and the environment in which these coins are developing? It tells us that one of the issues identified is slow transactions, and that's the fitness function these coins are addressing. If we start seeing strong coin, crypto coin, stealth coin, secret coin, Q government coin, then we know the fitness function has changed. It's now about avoiding government interference. Very similarly with digital autonomous corporations, you can really look at the resulting behavior and use that as a way to understand the environment in which these entities are operating better.
Now, the interesting part about digital autonomous corporations, of course, is that on the one hand, it's this programmatic thing, right? Where you've got these high level rules and the ways that it operates. The rules are essentially codified at a very high level. But then at a lower level, what Stan describes in his article is that Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies are distributed autonomous corporations. You can buy them and hold them. And by holding some of the Bitcoins, you hold essentially a piece of the entire network. And if the entire network increases in value, then so does your piece. So in that way, it's like a share. And I think that the pricing behavior that we've seen from Bitcoin over time has actually been much closer to a share than it has been to a currency.
It's an IPO, yeah.
Yeah. That idea, the more that I think about it, it's hard at first. It's really, it took me a second to understand it. And I'm still definitely trying to figure out all the implications of it. But it really does seem like that's a better way to think about cryptocurrencies than as cryptocurrencies, because they're not just currencies. There are all these other things too that aren't encompassed in that word. But digital autonomous corporation seems to do it.
As a computer scientist, what I really love about looking at these environments is the fact that what you can see again and again is compelling evidence that certain patterns will lead to evolutionary processes, regardless of where they appear, whether that's in science, in stock markets, in cryptocurrencies, in trading pork bellies, whatever it is. What you have really is the insight that simple rules or unintelligent agents following simple rules, when operating at scale and in large groupings, actually start exhibiting emergent intelligent behavior that is much, much greater than the sum of the parts. This is similar to what you see in ant colonies. A lot of agents that are unintelligent individuals, but are extremely sophisticated as a colony. Bitcoin is very much like that. Each node on the network really is following some very, very simple rules. And out of that, you have this incredibly complex and sophisticated emergent behavior.
And we're just getting started.
And what's going to be really interesting is that if this plays out in full, a lot of people are predicting essentially that this leads to the kind of technological singularity. Essentially, if you have rapid evolution of agents that can control money, they will keep controlling money and evolving very rapidly, and that rate of evolution will accelerate in what is known as a technological singularity. Essentially, you have these agents becoming more and more sophisticated until they can no longer be understood by those examining them.
Hi, this is Jason King, founder at Sean's Outpost, and you are listening to Let's Talk Bitcoin. Sean's Outpost is a homeless outreach in Pensacola, Florida, and we are proudly powered by Bitcoin. To date, over 13,000 meals have been fed to the homeless in our area, all purchased with Bitcoin and through the generosity of the cryptocurrency community. Read more about us at seansoutpost.com. Food, shelter, Bitcoin, everybody. Sean'sOutpost.com.